Dabo Sweeney's done a decent job. This Clemson football bunch, they win some games, so we decided we should do maybe a live stream once in a while talking Clemson football. I don't know. Who's going to be next? Duke? Talking Clemson Tigers, we got DeAndre, P.O. Football Funk, and of course, a.k.a. Bobby Dirkens. But Brian Knight here tonight talking Clemson football. How you guys doing?
I'm doing great. How about you, Mark?
I'm doing well. And I appreciate you guys. Of course, we just take a little jab at Dabo. Everybody stand in line to take a jab at Dabo these days. So, mine was a pretty much of a light touch compared to everybody else. But of course, we're talking dominance to the nth degree here with Clemson football since 2015. So you guys have been watching these guys for quite a long time. And real quick, before we dive into the news of the day, we got 3 items, and we'll probably kick it around and figure out other things to talk about. What's your mindset right this second versus this time of year, off season, July, going into 2015, after establishing what you did with decent seasons in 2012, 13, getting better. 2014 wasn't a great season, but you finished with a bowl win over Oklahoma. But you're not Clemson yet, DeAndre. How did you feel about your program, your team, your coach 5 years ago right now?
I thought, and I'm an optimist, I always thought Clemson would win the national championship. And of course they don't. But I just thought we were going to do pretty good. I thought we had a good defense. I thought Deshaun Watson should have started that Georgia game that year over Coach Stark. Was it Coach? Whatever his name is. Whoever the quarterback was at that time. I thought he should have started the game. I also don't think that Georgia Tech game should count on Deshaun Watson's loss record because he only played 5 or 6 minutes, and it was just amazing. And, you hear hype when people start hyping quarterbacks up. We heard about Deshaun Watson. Like, yeah, he ain't going to live up to the hype, man. I was just excited to see him and how great our defense was. I didn't think that we were going to be that good because we had just lost all of them guys to the pro, Stephon Anthony and all them other guys. I think Beasley and stuff. So I didn't think they were going to be that good on defense. You got Shaq Lawson, Bryant that came along. I mean, Tankersley and all them guys. And Venables turned them around.
Yeah, that was a really interesting time because I remember that season like it was yesterday. We see Cole Stout start, and there was a lot of head scratching at the time because you go back to that very first game of the year. I want to say that was when we played Georgia, I believe it was. It was Georgia, and I mean Georgia thumped us. They beat us by 24 points in that ball game. But Stout comes out, starts game. Watson comes out. He throws 2 passes. His first one was a laser pass. That we had never seen anybody throw a pass like that at Clemson before. And the next pass is a touchdown that actually exceeded the playability and just the overall talent of the pass before. And then, of course, they kept playing Stout, and, it is what it is. I agree with you. We should have never the loss of that Georgia Tech game should not be on Deshaun's record. I don't care what the rules are. I don't care the metrics that they measure this by. It's not logical because he basically didn't play the game. But we got a 10-win season. We beat South Carolina. We were happy, but we knew that Watson wasn't going to play the bowl game. And I'll never forget telling a friend of mine at church, he was a big Oklahoma fan. I said, well, y'all are going to thump us. Because I saw Stout play all season. I mean, there was no offense to Stout, but he really hadn't played that great. Then we go in and beat the crap out of Oklahoma, which was really, really fun, 40-6. And, we capped off another 10-win season. And so with all of that said, going into that season, we knew that Deshaun Watson was going to be taking over. We knew that we had talent. I can't say that we knew that we were going to go to the college football, or as far as for me, I'll speak for me. I can't say that I saw us going to the college football playoff, but the thing is, it wasn't out of the question. In years past, it was like we're good enough to make it to the New Year's Six Bowl because Sweeney was starting to turn the corner on things. but we didn't know. And at that time, to answer your question, going back, we knew we had talent. I just don't know if we knew that we were going to end up making it to the national championship the next year and lose only by 5 points to Alabama. It was a great time.
And who would have thought that you would have been turning around playing Oklahoma again the next year, much higher stakes in the postseason, of course, with Baker Mayfield and company. Close game at halftime. It was like a 1-point game at halftime. Then you guys took control.
Yeah,
Right.
I them. Yeah, it was fun.
And the thing about it, if y'all remember, that Oklahoma team had a lot of hype behind it because the year before they had beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. So everybody was talking about how good it was supposed to be that year. And we also got introduced to bowlware. That's because I think somebody was suspended and he started, and I think he got an INT on. I think I can't remember the quarterback for Oklahoma at that time. I know he was a transfer guy.
It was Mayfield.
Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield in the playoff game, yeah.
Yep.
But who was the one in the
Trevor Knight.
Yeah, Trevor Knight. Yeah, he transferred from Texas A&M, I believe, right? Yeah, so that's the first time we got introduced to him.
He transferred to Texas A&M.
Oh, he transferred too. Yeah,
Oklahoma. Yeah, he finished up with Kevin Sumlin.
Right. Yeah,
got a number of people on the line here, so jump on in. If you got any topics you'd like us to kick around, certainly leave them in the live chat, questions and comments as well. Pinero 5 Piru, big Michigan fan. DeAndre is a big believer in Michigan football. He's at the top of the list. But Pinero 5 Piru, Michigan, go blue, salute Mark, shake my hand. I appreciate it. I can do all those things, Pinero 5. We'll give you an elbow bump there, Pinero 5. No shaking the hands these days, but we appreciate you jumping on in. And that's what's beautiful about our live stream right here, regardless of what team we're talking about. We've got college football fans from across the map that join us, but understand we're going to talk some Clemson football. But if you got a national topic or ACC topic, throw it at us, and I will check out the live chat. We got I believe Pigskin Pete is contributing right here. We appreciate him. I will get the post of the super chat from Pigskin Pete to the screen here in a few minutes. Pigskin, enjoy your dinner. You're in much better company than with the three knuckleheads sitting here.
Yeah. And let me go ahead and throw this out there. The other day, I don't know if it was on the live stream with you or whether it was the live stream. I think it was the live stream with me and Pete. But he lives in the Charleston area. And I was calling him a bum for going to the beach and tweeting out. And so over this past weekend, he goes back to the beach and purposely tweets out a picture of he and his wife at the beach. And I asked him about it. I said, were you toning me? He said, yes, I was toning you. So we hate that you can't be here, man, but we know you will be toning us in some form. So yeah, I don't blame him. Mrs. Pete, I've met Mrs. Pete, and he's in way better company tonight. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. Dale Sherm is coming with the heavy artillery right out of the gate, so no soft layups when it comes to questions here. Dale Sherm. So does it bother anyone that all the 3 declared championships that Clemson has been at? Poorly worded question, but Dale, we can clean it up for you. So does it bother anyone that all the 3 declared championships that Clemson have been tainted in scandal? I got you, Dale. You're good. Or is it just business as usual, not judging, just asking? Ha, ha, ha.
Say what you want to say, and y'all all know I done shared y'all story about my Uncle Craig and my Uncle Dwayne, who was affiliated with Clemson. My Uncle Craig actually graduated. My Uncle Dwayne transferred out. But they took care of their players in the 81. So a lot of teams were doing it. Texas was doing it. SMU, a lot of teams were cheating back in the 80s, playing players, but it gave a certain amount of players a chance to go to college and do what they have to do. If you look at any school, you're going to find some type of cheating. Duke, Carolina known for cheating. Anybody else you want to look at, everybody has sometime been caught cheating. Now, the steroid thing that everybody keep talking about, only 3 players tested positive. Why Dexter Lawrence didn't test positive for it at the NFL Combine? Why was there no traces then? I mean, it might have been out of system, but why only 3 players? 81, no, I had no problem with that because I know what Clemson did for my family. Because I get joked all the time. I got friends that are South Carolina fan, and they tell me all the time, Clemson's history is probably one of the most racist in history. But I said in 81, Danny Ford looked out for my family. So I don't have nothing bad to say about Clemson, what they did in 81, because they helped a lot of people. And they started, Mark pointed out to me, Clemson didn't start turning around to 1977. One time we were just talking, and that's when the payments started, because that's when they started getting better talent than a lot of teams like Carolina and Maryland at the time in the 70s and late 60s. So, no, I have no problem with what they did in 81. So, no, I don't.
Yeah, I don't have to say too much there. I really don't have to say too much there. 81, you can speak for 81. I was born in 82. Yeah, I will say this. You go back and you look at history. I'm not saying it's okay, but there's a lot of teams who did stuff that was way worse. I mean, let's go to the University of Miami in the 98, 2001 era. Look at that. Look what they were doing. Look who they were taking out into the middle of international waters with prostitutes. If the issue is giving money to players, if the issue is helping some guys who has financial needs, unethical, yeah. At least they weren't taking them out there in the middle of the international waters, smoking pot and hanging out with prostitutes. On the other two national championships, I really don't know about two national championships. We're saying all three. We have that one incident you talk about with the PEDs. I think that you would have had more players test positive. But I'll also tell you this about PEDs. This really ticks people off. It's kind of like Barry Bonds. Did Barry Bonds do the whole steroid thing? Yeah. But to hit a baseball coming at you that fast, I don't care. If you put me and Mark out there with a bunch of steroids in us right now, question is, do we have the hand-eye coordination to hit the ball? And the answer is no. So there's so much to play into that. And then there's so much baiting in that at the same time. So the other two national championships, I think totally clean. The other ones, man, just pick at it how you want to pick at it. But we weren't supposed to win that national championship. You know, if you go back to 81, we were not supposed to win that national championship. We were playing against the mighty Nebraska Cornhuskers, and it was laughable that we would beat them. So if you read history, it didn't matter if we were paying Jesus Christ to come quarterback for us. We were going to lose that game, according to them, to the media, and we won it. So, but the other two, you know, you said you were just asking. I think that, hey man, it's a clean organization. That's one of the reasons a lot of people like to come after Dabo.
Brian says that, and he's never seen me in the batting cages, but you know, he's going to go ahead and say that anyway.
Excuse me, but did y'all happen to see? And it was on Rubbing the Rock where they were talking about the 5 Clemson teams of all time, like 2018, the 3 national championship teams, 81, and so forth. I thought they left out 1978. That was when Clemson went like 11-1 to beat Ohio State, but they lost to Georgia 0-12, and that's one of the ones that they left out. You know, Deshaun Watson, I can't remember all the years, but the one that he lost to Alabama was up there, and the year that he actually won it. 2018, last year team too, and 81, they put those 5, but I always thought that they left out 77. And I told Mark thought that the 1990 team was an awesome team. That's the one that lost to Georgia Tech by 2 and lost to Virginia in the early year. But I made this argument to Mark, they would have beat Georgia Tech. They would have had an argument for the national championship in 1990. Because they beat Illinois, who was the only team to beat Colorado that year, outside of the 5th down to Missouri. But, you know, I always made that argument. That is one of the better things I've seen.
Sounds like a request to do a 1978 national championship video. Is that what you're looking for, DeAndre?
They should have won in 1978. Who won in 78? Pitt? Was it Pitt that won in 78?
Alabama.
Alabama? Okay.
Alabama, USC split.
Right.
They split in 78.
I mean, I don't know if Alabama and Georgia played that year because, you know, back then, everybody didn't play everybody.
There were only 6 SEC games at the time.
Right. So, you know, sometimes I think they went like 20 years without playing each other back in the day.
I don't know what it was. I know in digging up some of these records from the past, and of course, like you, DeAndre, I lived it and remember it. But you know, you get a refresher when you go back and review some of these championship seasons. What I've done, Bobby. See, I knew I was going to do that. What I've been doing, Brian, is I'll look back at the national championship seasons where there was a contested championship, which for me is almost every year. But anyway, and
Yeah.
kind of review what happened and how the vote went, especially back in the poll era, and then kind of fast forward it into the BCS era to see what would have been decided most likely, and then fast forward into the playoff era, and it's kind of fun to see it break down from there.
We should do, yeah, I would like to do that. In fact, I just pulled up the college football national champions. I've got my laptop in front of me of the champions from, well, basically since we've been recording history. And that would be very, very interesting. It's great to go back to that timeline because all the big names of college football, the historical names, Bama, Southern Cal, Georgia. I mean, all you see those big names, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. I mean, it's just really, really cool to go back and look at those names and see who was dominant in that time, see who's returned to dominance, see the teams that actually stepped away from dominance for so long and then come back. But yeah, but as you said, 70s, I wasn't alive, so I could just sit here and just nod and grin or something like that for both of you.
Oh, yeah.
I can talk that stuff all day.
I mean, me and Mark went back to 1944 one time. I like how Tulsa didn't win the national championship, but they gave it to Ohio State. And, you know, I joke around with Mark about that all the time because Tulsa actually finished undefeated. I don't know who were playing at Tulsa in 1944, 1942, whenever it was.
Some of these teams, I got to tell you, played killer non-conference schedules back then. So Auburn, like in 1983, DeAndre, I know we talked in 1983, and I touted Auburn for a national championship claim. If I'm running Auburn's athletic department or I'm school president, I'm going to put up a banner in the stadium because I think we've got it just as much as Miami. But anyway, so they only played 6 SEC games and they played an 11-game schedule, so they had 5 non-conference games. Auburn played Florida State,
Texas, I believe, right?
Texas, yes. Texas was number 1 preseason or in the top 3. They played Texas. They played Florida State. They played Maryland, who was like a top 10 team. Oh, my goodness. They played somebody else. They played some killer non-conference schedules.
And I think that was that Frank Wright team that beat Miami, ain't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Absolutely.
You know. But you, Bobby, did you happen to see the all-time villains in Clemson football history? That was so funny. And one person, they went on the old ball coach, of course. Even at Duke, he gave us trouble. Nick Saban, the punch, the coach at what's it called it. But the one team I see Mark looking, the one team one person they left off was Dick Sherrington at NC State. If you go back to 88, 87, Clemson only lost to NC State in the ACC play, but they were beating pretty good teams, and that was the Deion Sanders was up there and Bobby Bowden too. But I think it was 88. Clemson could have won the national championship. Florida State only scored 2 special team touchdowns, one by Deion and then Butler running down the sideline and getting caught there. And then for some reason, those 3 years, they used to lose to NC State all the time. And that's one of the villains they didn't put up there. So that was kind of interesting to me that they didn't put Dick Sherrington as a villain because they went through 11 guys. Paul Feinbaum was one. Tony Ellis at South Carolina. And, you know, so that was very interesting to me. I wanted to know, did you came across that article?
No, I didn't. I tell you, man, it is interesting some of those names you come across. I think I miss the old ball coach and Dabo going back and forth. You know, you go back to that time. It's so much fun, and I'm married into a family of Gamecocks. Now I want you to think about this. I'm married into a family of Gamecocks. My father-in-law and I are really good friends. He's a big Gamecock fan. My brother-in-law, his dad went to Carolina. He graduated Tennessee. So I've got all these SECers around me. So my wife and I got married in 2012. And I mean, that's when Clemson's getting beat by South Carolina. So the first couple of years of our marriage, I had to just sit there and take it. And of course, this has been better years. But you know, I was telling my father-in-law one night, I said, you know that Sweeney and Spurrier are probably calling each other after they bicker in public and go, okay, so let's see how the media and the fan bases take this and run with it. Because a lot of coaches do that. You know, they lead their team, they do their thing. You know, it's just for fun. Obviously, there's other cases to where it's not that scenario whatsoever. There's just true blue. We can't stand each other. But I think those two, they had a healthy respect for each other and they had some fun with it. I miss those days. I think to me that if you're going to pick the bad guys, and as I said, I didn't see the article, the bad guys for Clemson football, our arch nemesis, we got to really look at the athletic department of Clemson in the early to mid 90s. I mean, what the crap were you doing? It didn't make sense, your hires. There was a great article came out a week before last where Emmitt Smith's brother, was talking about his time at Clemson. And of course, at this time, around the time frame that he was there and that he was referencing, I was probably 9 or 10 years old, but I was watching Clemson football. I grew up right outside of Clemson. And he was talking about that Clemson had like the number 4 or number 5 recruiting class in the country at like 92, 93, somewhere in that era, give or take a year. And Pete and I were talking about, we had no clue about it. Because if you look at the play of Clemson at that time, it was so embarrassing. And you go back to, and look, you know me, I'm not getting personal here. Tommy West, you know, he was a football coach. He made a lot of money being a football coach, so I'm not knocking him. I'm just saying for a school like Clemson, who was just a few years removed from the national spotlight of being a forerunner for the national championship, why did they go and hire a guy who was leading UT Chattanooga? Well, he had ties here, ties there. No. Don't give me that. It doesn't work for me. I don't accept that. And if the reasoning behind it is not enough, go look at history, see how it ended up for you. It did not end up well. We ended up his very best season going 8-3, 8-4, and we thought, oh man, we're turning things around, only to go to the Gator Bowl and get stomped by Donovan McNabb, Marvin Harrison, and all those boys in the Gator Bowl, 41-0. The very next season,
don't forget about Cal. Cal beat the heck out of us too by that time.
Yeah, man.
Cal, Hall of Fame Bowl. Yeah.
That
was miserable.
The very next year, our opening game is in Chapel Hill. We're in Chapel Hill. Leon Johnson's the running back for North Carolina. What do? We get blown out like 38-0. At this time,
Dre Bly, first play of the game, threw the interception. Dre Bly take it back to the house.
Exactly. The very next week, we play Furman in Death Valley. I was at the game. All right. We did not score a touchdown against them until like the fourth quarter. So if you do math here, we didn't score for 4 quarters in the Gator Bowl. We didn't score for 4 quarters against UNC, and we only scored in the fourth quarter against Furman. So we've basically went 11 quarters without being able to score an offensive touchdown. And we had talent on that team. We had
Trevor Price.
Dexter McLean was on the team. I mean, my God, we had the talent, and it proves that when you and I'm a big guy that I'm big on leadership. Leadership. It matters who you hire to lead a team. And I think the biggest arch nemesis of Clemson was their athletic department in that 1993-ish era, because it screwed up everything, and it took Dabo Swinney having to fix it.
Yeah, you know, you're right. Somebody asked me about the SI. It's on SI. I was trying to find it. That's why I'm looking at my phone. But you're right. And what hurt Clemson in the 90s is that the fact they didn't change their offense. They didn't modernize it, because that's when you saw Florida. I know Nebraska was still running the option to win the national championship, but you saw Florida, Miami, Florida State. They came more throwing the ball down the field, more playing like that. On defense, we had the talent. I think Hill was around that time. Trevor Price, like you said, Brian Dawkins. There's people that we're probably forgetting. Decimal Cleon. I think Chester McLaughlin was more 91, 92, but we had the talent. Cause I remember when what's the guy that came from Arkansas? He came in, and then like after the Illinois bowl win, we went to the triple options. Like we were going back in time instead of running modern offenses and comparing for the future. Because you saw it coming. Because you saw Miami, Florida State, and Florida do it. So yeah, we had the talent. And one thing I like to point out, as a Clemson fan, one thing you got to watch out for is what Carolina's doing. Because I pointed this out before on my own channel that when Carolina has been good, Clemson's never been good. Clemson gets a lot of talent out of North Carolina. Terry Tuttle's from North Carolina, Jeff David, Jeff McCall, because Jeff McCall's from my hometown. Him and my uncle are a good friend. All these guys came from out of North Carolina. So we got to watch out for North Carolina. So that's something else I was looking at too, seeing like what Carolina's doing. That might bring down our talent pool a little bit. I know we're on another level than Carolina, but you see it coming, especially with them signing this kid. I know it's only one player, but you do see it coming.
I see North Carolina as they're at this place that I could easily see them turning the tide. We're seeing it in recruiting. We saw the different, just the different look in their play last year. Sam Howell looked fantastic. There's just something about them that maybe we're getting some solid competition out of that other division. But you're right. You go back to the years that North Carolina has been really, really good, especially in the past 25 years. They had the year, 97, give or take a year, 1997. You had Oscar Davenport, Chris Keldorf playing quarterback. You had, what's that guy's name? L.C. Stevens. L.C. Stevenson is playing wide receiver. Of course, Dre Bly. Those were the
Julius
years you started seeing. Yeah, Julius Peppers.
Ronald Curry probably was the best high school athlete that you ever seen, basketball and football. I mean, they were getting that talent at North Carolina. And, like I said, that takes away from North Carolina pool. I know we just got Simpson and the kid out of the Charlotte area. I can't remember the kid's name because everybody's comparing him to Christian McCaffrey. But it's like, Carolina is coming. They got an Evans kid that lives like 10 minutes away from my house out of Lee County. I was telling him, I said, man, I was joking around with him. I said, really why Clemson didn't want you because you were playing against 5'3", 5'4" guys, and you 6'5". They were blowing through the boys. I mean, he's a beast. And Carolina's coming. I honestly think you ain't gonna see it this year, but I think Georgia Tech's gonna get better. The Georgia Tech schedule is just murderous. I don't see how they gonna get through it being 4-8 or something like that this year because their schedule was brutal. But you got a couple teams that's coming up in the ACC.
Absolutely.
Talk Clemson football with these two. We got Brian Knight, a.k.a. Bobby Dirkens. Catch him here on YouTube. There's the look, one of many. And then, of course, you got DeAndre, BGPO Football Funk. Again, both of them on YouTube. BGPO Football Funk. You'll see I'll throw up the banner. You'll know where to catch each one of them. Bobby Dirkens here on YouTube as well. I am merely Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. So lock it in right here. Subscribe, of course. That way you know when we're going live. And you just basically subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications. That's if you love college football. You don't love college football, keep moving on. But if you love college football, I see no reason why you don't lock it in here. We talk it up every day at some point with content or live streams on the game we all love. So you got a quarterback here, even though Chase Bryce has moved on to Duke. You got a quarterback that is no longer a quarterback, moving up your backup quarterback, DeAndre, here to wide receiver. What's the story there?
Well, I heard from what I understand with the interview with Tony Elliott, the interview is done by Jason L. Priester from SI.com. He's moving on to receiver. I've been working out receiver in the interview with Tony Elliott, and they was talking about how he has changed his body. So that's something to look forward to. But it's kind of a surprise. I mean, Bobby was talking about it, which you all said. It's like he came to Clemson. You had Chase Bryce there. You got DJ coming in. You got Trevor Lawrence already. So it's like, where was he going to play? And even moving to receiver is kind of surprised because Clemson's so loaded, even with Ross hurt. Maybe they need a little bit more depth at receiver. So that's why they might be trying them out or moving them over there. I'm trying to pull up the whole article. But, yeah, it's done by Tony Elliott. By Jason Priester on SI.
I think that right now where we're at with Fomachaw, and if I mispronounce it, y'all just forgive me and let's go on. But with him moving, that's good news to me because I'd heard in the offseason, even as early as the spring game last year, that there could be a position change for him. But if you look at him, he's 6'3", 6'4", 220 pounds, very athletic looking. Now, I'll tell you this, if he would have came into Clemson, say, in 2013-ish, 2012, this would have been a big sign for Clemson at quarterback. This young man had the misfortune of having to come in between Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, with DJ about to come in. So we're, as Kirk Herbstreit has said in the past, we have an embarrassing wealth of riches. This is one of those times that the riches is really, really obvious because Fomachaw is a good quarterback. I didn't say he was Trevor Lawrence. I said he's a good quarterback. He could start at a lot of places. But I think it is a great move for him because if you see him in person, he has a very athletic body type. You can tell he has a knowledge of the game that just supersedes just your regular knowledge of a football player. I see him moving out, catching the ball, becoming it could even become a very physical wide receiver. But I see him being, I don't want to say a gimmick player, but more of a player to where they could toss the ball to him turn upfield and throw the ball and actually do it quite well. So I'm excited to see him play. I think with Ross, the questions with, obviously Ross is out, but the questions with Ladson and Ngata, I know they're talented. I know we got EJ Williams. Everybody's talking about how great he is and how well he's going to do. And, of course, Amari Rogers. I just lost my mind. I went back about 5 years ago. Amari Rogers. Yeah, but Amari Rogers, there's still so many questions with this group because they could come up and play lights out and dominate college football. But if they play anything like they did last year, Clemson's going to have some issues. Clemson's going to have some issues when we start playing. I think, of course, we'll contend for the national championship again. I believe we're a front runner for it. But I'm going to tell you, if we have some problems at wide receiver and the guys are not playing good physical football, we get back in the college football playoff, as much as I hate to say this, we won't win the national championship. I don't care who we have at quarterback. I don't care who we have at running back. Our wide receivers are going to have to step up. So this is, to me, this is just somebody else to come in and hopefully give us a competitive edge to maybe even challenge some of those guys going, hey, guys, I was a quarterback, and I'm coming in and doing great. What's your problem? Iron sharpens iron. Let's get this baby going. I'm happy to see this move.
Brian, even if you make the college football playoffs and the wide receivers aren't quite to the level that you want, maybe you get a targeting call against maybe the best defensive back on the other team, and he gets knocked out of the game, and you're still good to go. It could happen. I'm just saying.
You know what? I think that's a great hypothetical example, man. That's a possibility. Or we throw a pass out to the right sideline, and I don't know, there's a reviewed play, and everybody's really pissed about it for a very long time.
Only half the country is pissed about it. Half was feeling pretty good. It was a great game. It was a stellar game. It was when right
tell
now
the quarterback not to throw an INT in the end zone at the end of the game. I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Hey, you know,
Hypothetically speaking.
that's
Yeah.
Ohio State not making a play in that game, and you know how many times, you know, with the game, with that big a game, you cannot have a bigger situation unless it's the national championship game, arguably, or maybe that's a bigger game trying to get to the national championship game, where you have a miscommunication between a wide receiver and a quarterback. My goodness, do that against FAU in week 2. That's pretty bad stuff. Whomever was at fault, I've heard a few different versions of it, but yeah, it was a tremendous football game in Clemson, regardless of the calls, whatever. They made a great comeback in the game, and Travis Etienne turned from running back who couldn't get much to a weapon at wide receiver, basically coming out of the backfield that torched the Buckeyes in 98-yard drive, and there you go. Clemson pulls it out.
What doesn't make any sense to me, and I don't have. I joke around with Ohio State fans, and you more that Ohio State is a great program, but they always bring up the history of Ohio State, and I'll be like, you're not playing history, you're playing the team. Now you say them in their college days, you put up all y'all All-Americans versus all our All-Americans. Yeah, Ohio State will probably run Clemson out the building, but unfortunately, that's not how it goes because y'all have some amazing All-Americans. I mean, Eddie George, Smith. I mean, I used to be one of those people that watched the Michigan State, Ohio State, Michigan, and Ohio State game back in the 90s. But like, how did they lose to them with that amount of talent? I mean, Pace at left tackle, Plummer, Springs. I used to sit there like, how did they lose to them? I mean, they got way more talent than Michigan. And I mean, 10-1 every year. That's the only game Cooper will lose is that particular game. And, you know, like I said, if that was the case, but for some reason, Clemson has Ohio State number, even though it's only been 4 times, Oklahoma, Notre Dame. I mean, that's amazing that Clemson has those 3 schools' numbers and with their football history and stuff like that. But like I said, you don't play the history. You play the team on the field that day.
Got Jason Fox in the live chat asking about the defensive line. You guys have any thoughts on that?
I've been hearing jokes that it might go to a 5-2. I don't know if they're being serious, but I mean, with Breezy, I mean, Foster's been in school since the 80s. I mean, he's still there. I mean, how much eligibility? It was Tyler Renfro got to graduate sometime or another. I mean, you know, I mean, that's just amazing. I mean, KJ Hamry was a top 10 player. I mean, X-Man got to step up, man. I know he had a concussion and he wasn't right most of last year, but he got to step up. I mean, everybody was talking about, you know, outside of Trevor Lawrence and Fields, he was the number 3 player in the nation as a defender. I mean, he got to come through this year. I mean, I know people say, you know, Clemson rotates a lot of people, so he might not get the numbers, but he got to dominate for Clemson to come through. I mean, we're just loaded. I mean, Pickney's back. I mean, what's my boy name? The kid that came on last year. His number's better than Watkins and Lawson. Lawrence was at defensive tackle this past year. So, I mean, this past year as a freshman. So, I mean, he's a beast. I mean, I don't know how teams are going to block him, especially with our schedule not being that great this year. I don't know how anybody in those first 12 games is going to block Clemson. If we have a season, it's not going to be pretty. Now, I can't wait for the Clemson game next year. That's going to be nasty. Old school next year.
That's what I'm looking forward to because, you know, of course, we lost Isaiah Simmons. And as I've said on this show and on others, just live streams, is that you don't replace Isaiah Simmons. And there are a few people who's even asked that question. What are we going to do about Isaiah Simmons? You're not going to replace him. You're not going to replace him. Just let it go. But I think the play of our defensive line is what's going to give our linebackers, even though we have Skowski and we do have, I think, fantastic cornerbacks. I mean, if you look at the names on our cornerbacks list and you look at the rating, you look at who they played behind, and you look at the reason they were second string, you realize it's because the person in front of them was just that incredible. But I think that they're going to be fine. But I believe the play of our defensive line is what's going to be so dominant. It's going to give our linebackers everything, time to gel, get some continuity as a team, communication, everything, the experience by the time we do get to, God help us, the college football playoff. I believe that's going to be the big thing that we have going for us. I'm not worried about the defense this year. On the offensive side of the ball, the main worry or concern that I have is just really, can our offensive line gel and will our wide receivers step up? That's the only questions that I really have with the team as a whole. But then again, we will see.
Well, we talk about Breezy, but there's a kid out of Kentucky. I want to say his name is Tucker. I mean, they are saying that he's a beast and he's going to challenge McFadden for that right tackle position. Man, we've been hearing about Mike Jones for about 10 years. I had not seen that guy play yet. And everybody keeps trying to tell us how great Mike Jones is. And I know the kid out of Charlotte, who was one of the top linebackers to come out this year, everybody's talking about him because how big and fast he is because he played running back too. And it was like, everybody said, we're not going to miss Isaiah Simmons. So Isaiah Simmons was special. Come on in, Tony. Yeah. Special. Come here. I'm sorry, my daughter. She wants to say hi, y'all. Come on.
Oh, nice.
Tell her what fan you are.
Hey there.
I'm a Duke fan.
You say it louder, they can hear you.
I said I'm a Duke fan.
Duke
You're
fan.
a Duke fan.
God bless you.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. No more Clemson.
Okay. I don't know why.
Clemson.
My daughter's 5'4" and she's only 8 years old. She plays basketball and she's amazing. And she loves Duke for some reason. I guess for the basketball, but I don't know. There's something wrong with that child. My other son in Carolina, so I don't know what's wrong with him. I'm like, what? This ain't basketball. And they're like, Duke football. Like, Duke don't have a football team. I'm sorry, but I'm ready.
I love people that get on here and root for bad football teams. I think that's amazing. Like, we got a big Maryland fan. He's in here all the time calling me. I love when people support bad football teams because I think, man, God bless you for hanging in there every year for 4 and 5 win football seasons.
I met a guy my age, and I'm 43, and he loves Kentucky football. This was before Stoops got there. He would tell you all about Bear Bryant back in the day at Kentucky before he went to A&M. He just loves Kentucky football. I mean, what's the big guy? He passed away. Big guy played quarterback. He got his jersey. I'm like, Hal Mummy and all them boys.
Sure.
Yeah, we started the air raid. He'll tell you, boy.
There you go.
Pulling for a team and that's not really cutting it is very, very difficult for a long period of time. And Pete and I have taken a lot of flack for this because, as he likes to say, people always accuse us of not pulling for Clemson until about 2014. And we've been pulling for them ever since, once they became good. But, the truth is, you've been a Clemson fan much longer than I have because you've been alive longer than I have. But pulling for Clemson, I was talking about the 90s just a second ago. I remember my very first college football game was a gift from my grandmother. She said, "What do you want for your birthday?" And I said, "I want to see Florida State at Clemson." And she made it happen. And I'll never forget, Danny Cannell walks out. Warwick Dunn's lined up behind him. I mean, I was in heaven. But I was just happy to be there and see them, even though I knew Florida State was going to beat us. And so for all those years that you sit and you pull for a football team and they waste talent and they waste opportunity. And then they, as I said earlier, they hire somebody that you're like, couldn't you have found a high school coach a little better than that? I mean, it takes a lot out of you to pull for a team who that season and probably in the next couple of years is really not going to do that well, if ever. So, I admire anybody who's pulling for the team because up until recently, Clemson has not, and I hate to say it, except for the 80s, and Clemson has not been easy to pull for up until about 2014. because we had so many. You remember the Clemsoning term? You're Clemsoning. And that really fired Dabo up. That one year somebody brought up Clemsoning. But unfortunately, I love Coach Sweeney, Clemson created Clemsoning. I mean, this is the same thing. This is the same team in 2005 that one week went to Coral Gables, beat a top 5 Miami team, and the very next week went to Duke and lost to overtime to Duke. That was Clemsoning. That's what we were used to. So when I see teams who are pulling for, they know this coming season, if they make it to a bowl, even if it's one of those horrible bowls, it's a big deal for them. I like to see them. I like to hear what they have to say because it takes a lot of guts to stick with your team.
Right. And, going to Clemsoning and all of that. I mean, I remember seeing Clemson, like I tried to tell me and Pisky and Pete got in a discussion that Georgia Tech, Clemson's biggest rival. And I always say yes because they recruit from the same area. But look how many times Georgia Tech has beaten Clemson, where Clemson looked like, 8-0, Georgia Tech upset them, or they have some type of great game, 39-38. The last 5 years, we just wiped them off the floor. But Georgia Tech, NC State, one year we beat Florida State 26-10, then lose to Wake Forest in a blowout. It's like, what in the world happened? It was just amazing. We don't give Tommy Bowden enough credit, and we should. He did help build a foundation for Clemson. I know Dabo Swinney took it to another level, but he did go get Simmons and change the offense and people like that. When it was running down, what was it? The first quarterback to throw for 2,000 and rush for 1,000. I can't remember his name on the top of my head.
Was it Woody Dantzler?
Yeah, Woody Dantzler. He did bring us those type of players. So we did see a change. Hamilton at receiver, he went in the first round. He was bringing in those type of players, but he just couldn't never get it done on a consistent basis. I mean, Mark is going to do something about 2,000. Clemson had, a 14-3 lead on Florida State, and not losing 17-14 in 2000. Like, he just never get it done. Sweeney just took it to another level, and is appreciative. I mean, and Sweeney reminds me so much of Bobby Bowden, because Sweeney, they talk about religion. They always try to keep their assistant coaches. Because when Bobby Bowden started falling off is when people started poaching at his assistant coaches. And that's what Sweeney's done a good job, keeping Venables, Morris left, but, Tony Elliott and Jeff Scott, they're keeping them around. And Scott's father, who was a head coach at South Carolina, he was a big part of Clemson recruiting too, because he had ties to Florida because he came from Florida State. So, you look at that, that's what Sweeney has done. But, you got to give Tommy Bowden a little credit because he did start it off. Rodriguez was at Clemson when, before they went off to Tulane or Tulane after Tulane. But
I've always wondered, what would
they did do some great things.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
What's that? No, you're good.
No, I didn't know if it was disconnected on my. I didn't know if it disconnected on my side because there was a lapse there. That's the reason I jumped in. I'll say this is one of the things that Bowden had happen to him early on was Rich Rod left. Now, I'm not talking about how history played out with Rich Rodriguez. I'm talking about Rich Rodriguez at the time that he came to Clemson. Bowden could not keep assistant coaches for a long period of time. He couldn't. And that's one of the issues. That's one of the things, as you said just a second ago, Sweeney has kept the majority of his coaches. One of the things I harp on all the time is continuity among the team, because if you have coaches who are staying involved in the program, it's extremely easy to keep a good continuity, to keep the culture that you want, to really control things and know that the offensive coordinator has been the offensive coordinator for the past so many years. I can trust him here. I can trust Brent Venables. I can trust this position's coach and that position's coach. They know how things run here. That's very, very important. One of the problems with Bowden is that he could not keep those coaches. Rich Rod was gone like that. I mean, just gone. You've got to think that in the very first year that Tommy Bowden was there, like you said, we lost, 17-14 to Florida State. They won the national championship. We also, that very same year, our very first game of the season was against Chad Pennington and Marshall. We lost that game by like 5 points. We played Michael Vick and Virginia Tech in Blacksburg. We only lost by a touchdown. Corey Simmons was on the edge, just blowing people off the edge. And Brandon Streeter, our now quarterback coach, he was the quarterback, and for the time, actually, I think was one of the more underrated quarterbacks in Clemson history, because I think had you put him in the right system, he wouldn't have been a Watson. He wouldn't have been a Trevor Lawrence. He was much better than what a lot of people give him credit for. With all of my rantings and ramblings there, Bowden just had certain things that I think that began to happen to him and his staff, and he couldn't keep a staff that after a while, I just think it wore on him. And I think that's where things really began to wear on him and wear with his relationship with Clemson and end up the way that history plays out. But overall, Tommy Bowden did some fantastic things for Clemson, and I'm appreciative to it. But yeah, if the 90s hadn't have been so crappy in the athletic department, he wouldn't have had to really cleaned up a mess.
Okay. No, we're short on time, but I want to bring up another article that I came across. I just glad I saw it just a minute ago while I looked for something else. Did you see where they were talking about the 5 most underrated football players in Clemson history? LaVon Kirkland, Jeff Davis, Woody Dantzler, which is shocking because people love Woody Dantzler, and Kirkland. Octavius Scott, who's somebody that we brought up earlier, and Anthony Simmons, in the 90s, which you were talking about the top recruiting class. I was kind of shocked to see Kirkland over there. But again, that 88, 89 area, the Clemson defense was great. And also I was shocked to see Woody Dantzler there. Like I said, people love Woody. But one quarterback that I don't think they give a lot of appreciation to in Clemson history is Rodney Williams, who was a quarterback 87, 88, 89. I think he was the all-time winning quarterback until Charlie Whitehurst came along. Nobody gives him a lot of respect, and those Clemson teams were really good. I think he was on an 89 team that went down to Florida State. And Mitch Hyatt, Clemson's history is going to forget about Mitch Hyatt because he didn't get drafted. But 4 years he started. And just like Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence, and all them other guys, he should have a place in Clemson history because he protected Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson for those 4 years and won 2 national championships, just like Watkins and Lawrence, Dexter Lawrence, and other guys out there, Farrell. He needs to get more appreciation in Clemson history. And I hope one day somebody would. I don't even know why he didn't get drafted. They could at least move him right tackle if he couldn't move that well. But, I know he was on the Cowboys team. But, Mitch Hyatt is somebody in Clemson history that needs more respect.
If anybody is a real Clemson fan, they know that Mitch Hyatt is one of the cornerstones of the success of those 2 national championships that Clemson got. And I think that time and the right people in the right places will honor him in the way he should be. Because to me, when I think of the success, I think of Watson, I think of Trevor Lawrence, I think of those players, the Wayne Gallmans, the great players. I could just keep going on and on. Mitch Hyatt is right up there in the reason.
Gallman's another one that we didn't mention. The blocking that he did against Alabama his senior year was amazing. That's why Kelly Bryant didn't have no success because ETN couldn't block nobody. The next year they went up against Alabama. Gallman's another one in Clemson history that doesn't get a lot of respect because he wasn't fast, but he was a great blocker. I think he was in the top 3 or 4 in all-time Clemson history in rushing.
Swampy McGee and Hurricane Logan, thank you so much for the love. Hit 20,000 subscribers a couple days ago. Thank you so much. And everybody who's on the live chat right now or going to be watching this video eventually, please subscribe. We talk college football every day. Check out the videos if you're not aware of what we do, but we talk college football for the hardcore smart fan. And if you're not the smart fan, I say it all the time, you jump on in, we'll educate you. We'll learn you up. We'll get you ready for 2020. Got DeAndre on the line, BGPO Football Funk, right here on YouTube, as well as Brian Knight, a.k.a. Bobby Dirkens. Look up Bobby Dirkens right here on YouTube as well. And so we appreciate it. Love talking Clemson football with these two, and usually Pigskin Pete as well. And, of course, I've got my opinion as well on the national scene and everything Clemson and the ACC. You want me to run some ACC all-decade players by you guys? See what jumps out? See who's missing?
All decades, 10 years, right? The last 10 years?
So this is 2010 through 19.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Packer and Durham ACC Network crew there at ESPN. I've never seen the show myself, but
they're Carolina fans. So
we've got each one of them has a team. So here first is the Mark Packer team. You got Deshaun Watson at quarterback. You got A.J. Dillon and Dalvin Cook at running back. Wide receivers are Sammy Watkins, Jamison Crowder, and Tyler Boyd. Tight end Eric Ebron. Will stop with the skill position players.
Mike Williams should be in there. I mean, Sammy Watkins. I don't see how you don't put Andre Hawkins, Mike Williams, and Andre Hawkins at the top three. And I know Boyd had some very good years at Pittsburgh, but those three were just amazing. Watkins burst on the scene. I still remember Maryland and Clemson having a shootout, and Watkins taking off on a kick return. I mean, those three were just amazing.
The Ohio State fans are going to remember Sammy Watkins because we've talked about that series and the games between those two teams. He torched Ohio State in the Orange Bowl in 2014. He probably had 12 catches in that game for 200 yards. Just annihilated Ohio State.
We wouldn't have won that Maryland game. On the Maryland game, we would have not won that game without a true freshman, Sammy Watkins, absolutely defying anything that we had saw at that time in a long time. And he did a great job going to that Ohio State game in the Orange Bowl. Sammy Watkins, if you look at and I'm not going to go off on some rant, but if you look at the succession of players who really changed things for Clemson, it started out with C.J. Spiller, and then you started seeing the Newt Hopkins, and you saw the Sammy Watkins, and those players. You saw this progression of talent, but to me, those are the OGs, and they've paved the way for our recent success.
Absolutely. So there's your skill position players again. Deshaun Watson at quarterback, Dillon and Cook at running back, Watkins, Crowder, and Boyd. I looked up Jamison Crowder's stats the other day. He played on that Duke Coastal Division championship team that got annihilated by Florida State in 2013, but at least Duke winning a division title. He caught 76, 108, and 85 passes his final 3 years at Duke. Jamison Crowder. A good player for the Redskins now. All right, offensive line. Cam Irving, Florida State. Anthony Costanzo, BC. Garrett Bradbury, North Carolina State. Jonathan Cooper, UNC. And Trey Jackson from Florida State.
I can't argue with him. I mean, to be honest with you, like I said, the offensive line don't get a lot of respect, unfortunately. Who was the tight end?
Your tight end, Eric Ebron, North Carolina.
Was it Dwayne Allen should be in there? I think Dwayne Allen would have.
Nick O'Leary, Florida State.
Yeah, I think Dwayne Allen should have been in there.
Okay.
Amazing.
Looking at the defense, you got up front. Well, they can't count too well. They got 6 defensive linemen. So it's easy to make all-star teams and all-decade teams when you add players. You know, here's my 4 quarterbacks and my 8 wide receivers. Anyway, Bradley Chubb, North Carolina State. Shaq Lawson, Clemson. Christian Wilkins, Clemson. Marvin Wilson, Florida State. Dexter Lawrence, Clemson. And Aaron Donald, obviously a great college player, but even better in the pros by some standards, from Pitt. A lot of great players up front on defense.
Yeah. I mean, I can't argue with that list. Dexter Lawrence is another person I ain't gonna get a lot of respect, but he changed Clemson football too. I mean, Wilkins, he did a good job. I know he moved to defense end, but nobody won't run on Clemson with Dexter Lawrence in the middle. I mean, the game has changed. If you imagine Dexter Lawrence would have came through in the 90s and 80s, I mean, he would have been All-American every year. I mean, I remember when he came out of college, high school, everybody said because of his size, he was going to be a top 5 pick. But because the game has changed where you got to be a 3-down player, not just 2, Dexter Lawrence, unfortunately might be lost in history too. But I'm glad to see him go in the first round. I was in Raleigh one day, and a guy had said to me, he played against Dexter Lawrence. He said, Dexter Lawrence said, white boy, I'm about to make you famous today. He said Dexter Lawrence had like 5 sacks, so it was crazy. I was like, man, Dexter Lawrence ran through you like that? He said, yeah. He said, hey, what that I can do with that big boy? He huge. So, but, Dexter Lawrence is somebody, I think has changed Clemson history, but because he was quiet and not like Wilkins or not as, Wilkins can move up and down the line, he won't get that amount of respect. But Dexter Lawrence did a lot to change Clemson history also.
Got your guy Isaiah Simmons at linebacker, along with Luke Kuechly, tackling machine at BC, and Micah Kaiser at Virginia.
Yeah, they can't argue that one.
Then in the secondary, again, difficult counting a lineup here for these boys. For some reason, they've got one cornerback. I don't know how you play football with one corner. Jalen Ramsey from Florida State. And I think you could find some pretty decent cornerbacks in the ACC over the course of 10 years. My goodness, with Clemson and Florida State in particular, Miami as well.
Yeah, don't bring up Arnie Burns. It still hurts my damn heart that we drafted him out of Miami because he was getting killed. I'm a Steelers fan. And Arnie Burns, I was like, what they draft him for? I don't know how he's still in the pros. I think the Bears side. I'm like, he never even played at Pittsburgh. He was out for 5 years. But let me tell you something about that Florida State team with Jameis Winston. That defense was just amazing. They shut Clemson receivers down. We could not get off the ball. I think it was 52-10 with Taj Boyd, and we were favored to win. Those guys was amazing. And that's something that worries me about Clemson's offense, even with LSU game. We got to find more diversity. We need to find another Renfro. We need to find another Renfro. We need somebody that can move around in that slot area. We had 2 deep threats on the outside and Rogers doing his thing in the middle, but we needed more diversity. And that's what I'm looking for coming up this year out of that receiver spot. Yeah, we got the people that go there and win jump balls, similar to Mike Williams and Deion Kane and so on and so on. But who's going to work the middle of the field? And everybody's looking at the tight end, Galloway, but that's something that we need to look for. But that Florida State defense, I know, Mark, you always tell me they played a very weak schedule. I think somebody backed out a game against them that year that would have gave them a better schedule. Early in the year, they had to play Savannah State and gave them like $1.5 million to get beat by 77-0. And then next week, Savannah State go to Oklahoma State and get beat for another $1.5 million, like 80-0. So, yeah, that Florida State team was just amazing. And they shut Clemson down, and that was with Hawkins and Watkins on the team.
I'm just impressed, DeAndre, that you actually remember and listen to what I tell you.
Love football, man. Anybody that talk about football, man, I love it.
So we got the West Durham's all-decade team, and I'll just point out some differences. Don't have to go through the guys that were named by both gentlemen, but Jameis Winston at quarterback. So that's pretty much your argument. I can't think of anybody else who could be reasonably argued at quarterback for the decade between Winston and Watkins. I'm a Deshaun Watson guy at quarterback. I don't want to say this definitively because I haven't scoured my lifetime for quarterback play and how I would rank them, but off the top of my head, I want Deshaun Watson leading my team in a big game over anybody that I can think of in the history of college football.
Yeah. His heart, just as a person, when you hear his backstory, Deshaun Watson's an amazing person. And it was good to see him. And look at that first Alabama game where they put up, 40 points on Alabama? He did not have Mike Williams. He had Peak. I think Peak might have played for the Jets for about a year or two, but he did not have any great receivers on that team. Leggett was good as a tight end, but he really didn't have nobody. He was a one-man show in that Alabama game, man. I mean, they made Nick Saban change how he did things. I mean, because of Deshaun Watson and Johnny Football too, but but mainly Deshaun Watson gave him hell. I mean, if it wasn't for special teams, Clemson probably would have won that game. I mean, special teams killed us.
And I told my Florida State guys that this week. I said I go Deshaun Watson over Jameis Winston, and I think Jameis was an all-time great collegiate quarterback, but he only played 2013 and 14, 2 seasons. Yes, in his second season, he was throwing picks all over the place. Yeah, Deshaun Watson. I don't have to think about it. I'm not going to say it's not close, but I don't have to think about it. I think this West Durham made a better play at running back, replacing A.J. Dillon. Tremendous back, just a bulldozer. But Travis Etienne should be in the starting backfield for the all-decade team with Dalvin Cook, in my opinion.
Well, I'll say this about Dillon. I'm sorry, Bobby, but I would say this about Dillon. He didn't play with the talent that Etienne played with. And Dillon, I remember like his last 8 games, like he didn't even start, and he rushed for some ridiculous yards. I mean, it's just amazing his build. I don't know if he even got drafted. I don't know who he went to, but Dillon's a beast. I can't remember.
We got Tyler Boyd out of the lineup. Rashad Green, Florida State at the wide receiver with Watkins and Crowder. They both like Eric Ebron at North Carolina as the tight end. You got some different. You got an all-purpose player, Greg Dortch here. Chiming. Whoa! I lost my team here. Greg Dortch, all-purpose player, tremendous player at Wake Forest. I can't see the entire offensive line for some reason. I don't know what's wrong with my screen here, but anyway, we'll move on. Defense. Vic Beasley's a new name that wasn't named by the other guy. The rest of the defensive front, he actually has 4 defensive linemen. I think that's pretty standard. And then we've got linebackers, same 3 linebackers. Kendall Fuller out of Virginia Tech named at corner, along with Jalen Ramsey of Florida State. Yeah, so that's always interesting to do. It's tough to do off the cuff, like I'm throwing at you guys and myself, trying to remember 14 teams, 10 years of play. Who did we miss? Who could have been in there? Comparing players. It's difficult to do off the cuff.
And like Alexander, who played DB for Clemson, he went to Minnesota. I can't remember his name. But, I mean, can you ever see – I can't remember his first name, but have you ever seen him get burnt? I mean, he was like a top 5 player in the conference. I mean, coming out of high school, I know you got redshirted. And, he was just amazing. I mean, him and Tankersley, they are both winning the second round. They were just as good a tandem as we just saw 2 years ago. So I think Clemson do a good job of developing DBs, so that's why I'm kind of waiting to see what's going to happen this year, because I don't have as much optimism in our DBs as far as the defensive back, because we've been hearing about Booth and the other guy for a while, and it's like they hurt. What's going on? Like, I want to see what you can do, because if you had to move Kendrick over to defensive back last year, and I know Booth didn't come in the middle of the semester. He had to wait till the summer to come in. Maybe that's one of the reasons why we didn't see him a lot, because he was learning the system. But I mean, I just can't wait to see what he does with Booth and Sherrington Jones. What is the other guy? I can't think of his name, because he was highly recruited too, and we didn't even see him last year. I can't remember the guy's name.
Got a comment in the live chat about Deshaun Watson. Go ahead, Brian.
No. Mackenzie Alexander was who we were talking about. You got to think Mackenzie Alexander in that first national championship against Alabama. You're talking about Watson. Watson didn't have all this high power offensive options in that game, and he still put up outrageous numbers. We scored 40 points on them. On the defensive side of the ball, you got to remember Mackenzie Alexander got hurt and didn't play the majority of the game.
Right.
So about that year, Mackenzie Alexander would have been on the sideline that O.J. Howard slipped out the sideline and had that long touchdown. You remember that in the
Yeah.
game, unfortunately.
And they
And
did
I
it both. They did it both
watching
years.
that.
I'm like,
Only people-
right.
yeah, I told a few people, I said, had Alex been playing, that would have happened.
Right. Yeah, we Alexander was a big difference. I mean, Shaq Lawson was hurt that game too. There's no excuses. Alabama won the game, but you know that defense. I would like to see if there was that full strength. How it would have been different, especially with Alexander and Shaq Lawson being hurt. But and our special teams just sucked that game. I mean, you can't let the guy run down the field like that. And that onside kick, man, that was special right there. I like that. That took a lot of guts for Nick Saban to do that.
Yeah, to hang in that close after you give up an onside kick and a kickoff return touchdown is tough to do in the fourth quarter against a team that's that good. Our longtime faithful viewer, Cheryl, her home, according to what's being talked about in the live chat, being threatened by fires out in Arizona. So, Cheryl, please do everything you possibly need to do to stay safe out there, Cheryl. But our hopes and our prayers and our wishes and thoughts are with you, Cheryl. So keep us posted, and again, stay safe out there, please.
Yes, I know Cheryl. I see Cheryl a lot. She's a good person, she always had positive things to say.
Let everybody know that we got an exclusive live stream coming up every week. We've been launching that on a Thursday night 2 weeks ago. Had our second one, so we invite all of you. So you see where Brian is, you see where DeAndre is. Put yourself right in those spots. We send you a link. You can come on, talk college football with me and other viewers, and it's a great time. We again had 2 of these over the past 2 Thursdays, and I'm looking at next Thursday. So just in the comments section, just say I'm interested. That's all you got to say is I'm interested, and I will get in touch with you and send you the link on Thursday nights to talk college football with me with an exclusive live stream. All right, boys. It's been a good time. Any parting shots?
No, we're not going to talk about 31-0 or 4-0 versus Ohio State. Y'all have a great night. Happy 4th of July to everybody in the chat. And Mark, thank you again. Thank you, Bobby. Man, I appreciate y'all letting me come on and chat about Clemson football. Mark, we got to do something about East Carolina because a lot of my friends are like, you graduated from East Carolina. I'm like, yeah, I love East Carolina too. But so one day I'll have to find somebody to talk to East Carolina about you. They're coming. Watch what I say. So,
We can talk some East Carolina sometime. What Zay Williams went there. That's the last big East Carolina player I can remember. Wide receiver. We can go back to Jeff Blake and company too.
Right.
All right. Anything else for us, Brian?
I don't know if it's tuned up. Can he hear us?
I think he's a little bit behind us. I think that's the problem.
I think so, and I think I'm just sitting here nodding my head to about anything.
Okay, all right. We're all good. Again, that's Brian Knight, a.k.a. Bobby Dirkens. Catch him here on YouTube. And also DeAndre, BGPO Football Funk right here on YouTube. I'm Mark Rogers, MarkRogersTV. Please lock it in, subscribe, and we will see all of you very soon. Be looking out for the notifications for the live streams. Hey, guys, thank you so much. Good times.
All right, man. Take care, Mike. Take care, y'all.